what the black man and woman needs to know about the nation, about the world, about themselves. Muhammad Speaks It. To order your 12-issue subscription to Muhammad Speaks newspaper, 313-371-7033. 313-371-7033. Kareem Bean Pie is the grand champion of all bean pies. The rich flavor and smooth texture takes this pie to a whole new level of delicious. One bite and you'll understand why people all over the country call daily to order Kareem Bean Pie. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033. Kareem Bean Pie.
This bean pie is delicious.
Muhammad Speaks presents Messenger Elijah Muhammad's Teachings by Minister Khalil Shabazz every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. at Muhammad's Temple of Islam, 12609 East McNichols Road in Detroit.
Brothers and sisters, we rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, sole Master's day Yemen in which we now live. The alone do we serve, and the alone seek for thine help and aid. O Allah, please guide us on the right path, path of those upon whom thou bestow thy favors, not on the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray after they heard thy teachings. Say he, Allah is one God. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begetteth not, nor is he begotten, there is none like him. And I bear witness that none is to be served, worship, or praised besides Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is thy true servant and last apostle. Ameen. We'd like to acknowledge the brothers and sisters that extended us the greetings of Assalamu alaikum. We have Brother Abdul Hassan from Virginia. We have Brother Captain Hakeem from Virginia. We have Brother Kamu Islam from Virginia. Minister Kamu Islam from Virginia. We have Brother Yusuf Brooks from California. We have Minister Jabran Rashad from Chicago. We have Sister Hala Brooks from California. And we have Brother Mikhail Shabazz from Arizona. I'd like to say in the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and in the name of his last and greatest messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, I'd like to greet the brothers and sisters with the Nation of Islam's greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. Today we'd like to talk about the fall of America and Muhammad is the door. Now it's very important for us to constantly give the reminder how the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the door. Because we can't just talk about the teachings. Because we also have, once again, it's called the Black Church and the Fall of America. Now, when you go listen to these people who steal the teachings of the messenger, if you didn't know what the messenger taught and you didn't know that it came from him, they sound like they teaching it. If you listen to Bus Stop Bishop, take the same subjects that the messenger taught for 40 years back in the 30s. If you didn't know that the messenger taught it, it would sound like he did come up with it. But what we need to understand about the messenger is this is the book called Fall of America that came out in 1973. And when you open up the front cover, it's called The Appreciation. The messenger says, in the name of Allah, in the name of Almighty Allah, the most merciful Savior, our deliverer, master of the day of judgment, to Allah alone do I submit and seek refuge. He says, this book was made from speeches and articles I prepared over several years. Now this is very important to know about the messenger. Because the messenger had exhausted all means of getting the truth to the black man. That's how much or how long the messenger was teaching this all by himself. He had already exhausted the radio. He already exhausted lectures. temple meetings, newspaper articles. So he said, let me take the same radio broadcast, same interviews, same lectures, same articles, and put them in the book. This is how we came up with Message to the Black Man, Fall of America, Our Savior Has Arrived, How to Eat Book 1 and 2, Supreme Wisdom Volume 1. All of the Messenger's books was just his lectures and his articles just put in a book.
That's right.
Long before anybody else ever even thought to teach what the messenger taught. And this is important for us to know because we are so far removed from the messenger. We like almost 50 years since the messenger was alive. So a lot of people who take his teachings and tailor make it for their groups, it sounds like it came from them. So let's go to the introduction of Fall of America that's written by Secretary John Ali. He says, Mr. Elijah Muhammad is bringing a final truth to the people. He is revealing the secret of the symbols, parables, signs, and prophecies of the scriptures. The Old Testament is a book of prophecy and parables, symbols and signs. The New Testament is a fulfillment of a prophecy whose time is now. All religions have talked of a doomsday, judgment day, or a type of hell filled with fire and brimstone. So this is the messenger coming from Secretary John Ali. Now he says that the messenger is bringing a final truth. That's something that has been lost since the messenger was alive. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad don't bring a truth that needs to be added on to. He don't bring a truth that needs help. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad brings us a final truth. Praise is due to Allah. So after him is finished. There's no more truth to teach the black man. Because when you go to the Fall of America and you look at the chapters that the messenger has, the first chapter is called Washington, D.C. Speech May 29th, 1959. This is a speech that the messenger made in Washington, D.C. in 1959. Then if you look at the rest of the 62 chapters in this book, you can either find these chapters in cover articles in the Muhammad Speaks or in the Fall of America. So the messenger, what else can a person teach you about the Fall of America? What else can be said? After the messenger opens up the secrets of Allah, teaches us the knowledge of God, bringing us face to face. What else could a person teach us? This is what the messenger taught us about his teachings. He said, after a man brings you face to face with God, he said there's nothing else for someone to teach you.
That's what he said.
Praise is due to Allah. So when the messenger wrote the message to the black man in the Fall of America and all of his books, he was just telling us over and over again that final truth. He was not telling us anything different than what he was saying in the 30s.
Right.
Because when Master Farad Muhammad came, July 4th, 1930, he did not come with something that needed help. He came with a truth that would take us, the messenger says, to the hereafter. That's what the messenger said. And the messenger even went even further with the wisdom of Master Farad Muhammad. He said he brought me up pretty close. But he said he still didn't share with the messenger all he had in store for the black man. That's what the messenger said. He said that if it pleases Allah, he said, I would be with him on his return. But if not, he said, you still don't have an excuse. He said, you have the truth just the same.
That's right.
Praise due to Allah. So the messenger in the Fall of America, he brings us a final truth. It says he is revealing the secret of the symbols, parables, signs, and prophecies of the scripture. That's the two things that I want to go back and do. We don't have time to talk about the parables, the signs, and the prophecies. But I want to talk about the secret of the symbols. Because we don't never, when you really study the messenger's teachings and really start to go in depth of what he said, it's so much science that the messenger taught us that goes over our head. We the messenger said one time, we be so quick to try to get new wisdom that we pass up the wisdom that's in the basic stuff. Because we just want to know every little thing. So we just pass over who is the original man just to get to something else that we think is so heavy. But if you just look at the basic stuff the messenger told us, it's so much wisdom in just, so we going to just talk about today the symbols. What does it mean when you say symbolism in literature? It says symbolism is a literary device that uses symbols, be they words, people, marks, locations, or abstract ideas to present something beyond the literal meaning. So that's what it means when they talks about using symbols in literature. You can take a whole people and just use them symbolic. Not really talking about them and their history, just using them symbolically to talk about something else. You can use a location. That's symbolic. That in your story, you're not really talking about the location, but you using the location symbolically to talk about something else. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was raised by God in person, he taught us the secret of the symbols of the Bible. Taught us that these symbols represent the black man. This was something that we never heard and never knew before in our life. That's right. So let's give an example. This example is one of my favorites because there's many examples, because you might hear me listen or continue to say the same examples. Because for me, these are my favorite. I like the way the messenger broke down Samson. That was something that I knew growing up in church. I used to sit with my grandmother and we used to watch the 10 Commandments every year. We would watch the greatest story ever told every year. We used to watch Samson and Delilah every year. Every time they came on, I would sit with her and we would watch these Bible stories. Yeah. So when I first read the messenger actually break down the symbol of Samson, I was blown away. Yes, sir. So this comes from the January 2nd, 1970, Muhammad speaks. The messenger says, we must remember the Bible story of Samson. There was a real Samson, and he was very strong as it is written. But the story of Samson in the Bible has a great significance to it. He says, however, it is not something just to be taken literal. That's the first thing that got me about Samson. Because I really believe that Samson tore the pillars down. I believe he really got his eyes plucked out. I believe he really had his strength in his hair. So when I heard the messenger say, it's a story. There was a real man named Samson. But this is one of the symbols. Because you can use a person as a symbol. Yeah. Samson was a real person, the messenger said. He was strong. But in the story, they're not even really talking about him. They just using him as a symbol. Yes. Praise be due to Allah. So the messenger said that it's much significance to the story, but it's not to be taken literally. Right. So the messenger goes on. This time, this comes from the May 16, 1969, Muhammad speaks. Because before I actually read this article, I saw this cartoon. And that's another thing about the Muhammad speaks. When you first get them, sometimes some stuff you skip over. I thought this was for the kids. You know, the messenger making something for the junior FOI. So at first, I didn't read these. Until you read so much, then you just be like, I wonder what he telling the kids. So I read this one about Samson. Blown away. Let's start in the middle. Now this is when the junior FOI is talking to a black man about rights. Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, since he understood the signs and the symbols, the secrets of it, he could give us real-time description of what we was doing while we was doing it to give us an understanding of it from the Bible. The messenger talked to the integration and civil rights leaders from the Bible. He talked to the Panthers from the Bible. This is how we know he is the last and greatest messenger of Allah. Because the messenger gave us this in real time. The messenger ain't like Bus Stop Bishop. The messenger done already taught us about the fall of America. So Bus Stop Bishop is not telling us nothing in real time. Because when the messenger taught us about Samson, this was when the country was going through all of these riots. When the black man was frustrated with his new knowledge of self. So the messenger broke down our condition by using Samson. This is what the messenger says. Or this is what the cartoon says. It says, Mr. Muhammad says the rising up of the black man is prophesied in the Bible under many symbolic stories. That's number one. He didn't say it's prophesied in the Bible in history to make us think that we're supposed to take what's said in the Bible literally. He said in many symbolic stories. Our condition is prophesied, meaning thousands of years ago. It was prophesied that the black man would be suffering from this condition that we in today. But it was put under signs, symbols, and parables. Because the messenger, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, taught us that the white race was given 6,000 years to rule. In them 6,000 years, he said the black man was put to sleep. So the truth was not spoken of or taught direct. The truth was put in parables. The truth was put into signs and symbols. But he told us that in the end of the world, of the white race, he said God was prophesied to come. He was prophesied to come and raise up one from among the illiterates, one from among the deaf, dumb, and blind, and teach that one person the secret of the signs and the symbols. Praise due to Allah. So that person is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Yes. So he taught us. He says, Mr. Muhammad says, the rising up of the black man is prophesied in the Bible under many symbolic stories. He says Samson is one. He said his hair, knowledge of self and others. That was the messenger. Teaching us the first symbol or the first sign about Samson ain't got nothing to do with the real man. Nothing to do with his history. Nothing to do with Israel. But in this story, they use his hair as a symbol. Yes. They say his strength is in his hair. All the time we watching it, we thinking his physical strength. We ain't thinking nothing about his knowledge of self. We not thinking nothing about Samson represents the black man. We looking at this like this talking about Israel. Back in the day, this man named Samson was caught by these Philistines. He had all of this strength that they was wondering where his strength lied. So they taught us in the Bible his strength was in his hair. But the messenger said that ain't to be taken literally. That's just a sign or a symbol. His strength or his hair means the knowledge of self. Right. So then it goes on. It says Samson is one. His hair, knowledge of self and others, was shaved off after being deceived. Two more symbols. Because one symbol is his hair. That represents the knowledge of self. The second symbol is his hair getting shaved off. We ain't had no clue that that's talking about the black man losing the knowledge of himself.
That's right.
We knew nothing about that. But the messenger said this is the secret to the signs and the symbols that was hidden for 6,000 years. Praise be to Allah. So it talks about his hair being shaved off after he had been deceived. So that's another symbol. Because his hair didn't just get shaved off to take away his physical strength. His hair being shaved off means his knowledge of self. And he was deceived by Delilah. Another sign and symbol.
That's right.
Because we're not talking about some woman that lived back in Israel and she shaved off or found out Samson's secret. The messenger said Delilah represents the white race. Praise be to Allah. So this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was taught by God in person.
Yes.
He broke down for us just in this simple little, how they draw the little cloud with a little boy thinking or talking. He done broke down 4 symbols in that little bitty thinking cloud. That I'm sitting there like, wow. Because a lot of times when you read this stuff from the messenger, you be wanting him to tell you more. He'd be like, tell me something else. Because it's just so much stuff that you go back in your mind thinking all of these years. I'm sitting with my grandmother watching Samson and Delilah and it's talking about the black man. And I'm sitting there not having a clue. So when the messenger opens up our eyes, we recognize that he is the last and the greatest messenger of Allah.
Yes.
He's not the last and greatest messenger of Allah simply because we saying so. He the last and the greatest messenger of Allah because he said he is the only person in 6,000 years that God himself chose.
Yes.
That's something that nobody on the face of the earth can say but him. He can say God came 9,000 miles. Not only did he come 9,000 miles, but he came seeking to save that which was lost. The messenger said that he didn't become acquainted with Master Farad Muhammad until 1931. That's something that's something in the history that makes the messenger the greatest also. Because Master Farad Muhammad was here for a year, seeing the black man, teaching people, teaching them the wisdom. But he's still looking for his message. He's looking at all these people, making ministers. Because they used to say, when you read the history of Master Farad Muhammad, even if you listen to the messenger or you listen to the believers or read it in the Detroit Free Press, they used to be teaching Islam all night long. That's what the messenger said, and that's what believers would say.
Yes.
They would say they would sit there for 8 hours listening to Master Farad Muhammad teach. Then he would just dismiss them and bring a whole nother room full of people and teach them for another 8 hours. The messenger said that he would see Master Farad Muhammad and he used to wonder, did this man ever sleep? That's what he said. He said he would see Master Farad Muhammad and he said that even with him, he said Master Farad Muhammad would have him so working him so hard. He said it was like he was in jail when he was with Master Farad Muhammad. So he was like, I wonder, do he sleep? Like all I see him do is working and teaching. So the messenger said that one day he was looking in Master Farad Muhammad through the keyhole.
Yeah.
He said he wanted to see if he slept. So he said that when he was looking through the keyhole of Master Farad Muhammad's door, he said as he looked through the keyhole at the mirror, he said he could see Master Farad Muhammad looking at him through the mirror back through the keyhole.
Yes.
That was the message. So he said that this man was a very serious and for real man.
Yes, sir.
He said he talked and spoke with authority. He said he didn't talk like what he thought somebody else was going to do. He said he talked like what he was going to do. He said he is the all-wise, true and living God. He said he does not represent to us a spook or a spirit. He said he represents to us God in person. So the messenger goes on in the cartoon. It says, now his head is no longer shaved. After 6,000 years, his hair is growing back. That's another symbol. That's another sign that went all the way totally over our head. So we looking at the story, thinking, okay, they done shaved Samson's hair. They done plucked out his eyes. But now we see his hair growing back. So we thinking he about to get physically strong again. Because when I used to watch the movie with my grandmother, we thought that Samson was won. We was happy to see Samson pull the pillars down and kill everybody. We thought that was his victory. We not thinking like, why would he kill himself? We had no idea that what Samson was doing was foolish. We thought he was the winner. That was the moral of the story. To kill everybody, including yourself. It wasn't until I read the teachings of the messenger to find out what Samson did was really foolish. So the messenger goes on. It says, now his head is no longer shaven. After 6,000 years, his hair is growing back. Delilah's evil deceit has been made manifest, and Samson is angry. He wants to tear down the house of his enemies, but they had put out his eyes. Samson is blind and needs guidance. Another sign and symbol. All of these signs and symbols in this movie that we never saw, that we never would have figured out. They plucked out Samson's eyes, meaning he was deaf, dumb, and blind.
That's right.
He couldn't guide himself. They took, as the Bible said, a young man had to walk Samson around. This big, strong man. This big, strong man that has the strength to destroy all the Philistines. Not some little young man has to walk him around. We thinking that has to do with the Israelites. We thinking that's some old Bible history or the history of the Israelites. But the messenger said that's another sign and symbol. Because that represents the black man. That represents us as a people. The messenger say we strong. He said, but we don't have no sight. And the messenger goes further to break this down in this Muhammad Speaks article that we read. Is from the January 2nd, 1970, Muhammad Speaks. This the message. He says, black man, you look for salvation, but you have no eyes. You will not let anyone open your eyes. Samson pulled down the building, and he destroyed the might of the Philistines to continue to rule and mock him. But the story tells us that Samson also was destroyed because he had been robbed of his eyes and could not see how to get out of the way of his powerful strength. He achieved the destruction of his enemies. The strength was there, but the eyes and the sight of mind needed to protect the strength was lacking because of that enemy Delilah, who had robbed him of his own knowledge of thinking for self. I'm like, that's deep.
Yes, sir.
Because the first law of nature is self-preservation. If you were strong enough to tear the walls down, and if you thinking for self, you would say, how can I pull the walls down and me get out?
Right.
And kill them? That's what you would do if you was thinking for self. But when you not thinking for self, when your hair is shaved, you angry. Now your hair grows back. You understand a little bit more about yourself and you wise enough to know you've been tricked. Now you mad. But you still blind, deaf, and dumb. You still need guidance. You still need somebody to show you the way.
Right.
But you mad now. You ain't. So you use your strength to tear the walls down, but you kill yourself. So in a sense, you helping the Philistines. Because the Philistines' goal was to kill you. That's what they go. Right. So you help them. But the messenger said, we don't think for self. And this is what Samson did. He didn't think for himself. We as black people in America do not think for self. Even though we have strength, even though we have power, but we still don't think for self. Praise due to Allah. Just like you got that hypocrite Louis Eugene. He got that Chinese girl in the nation. We don't think for self. We got all the teachings of the messenger teaching us do for self, think for self, have a knowledge of self, love self, help self before helping us. Then we'll let this hypocrite come in with this Chinese person and make us not think for self.
Right.
Make us think of her people before we think for ourselves. But the messenger said, he said, God has come. God has risen a messenger for the black man to teach and guide us.
Yeah.
Not just to teach us. Because we always got to remember these Bible parables. Messenger didn't just come to teach us. He came to teach and guide the black man. Because we think we can get these teachings and do what we want to do. Just like with that snake Shahrazad. Because we can talk about them all. That hypocrite Louis Eugene. He got the black man where the black man don't think for himself. Then you got that snake Shahrazad. She want to take the teachings of the messenger and do her thing. But the messenger is our guide. So as our God, he teaches us what to do and what not to do with his teachings. We don't just, it's not a free-for-all. We got a way that we are supposed to administer the truth to the black man. We can never think, because the messenger said, he said, those of you who know, remember there was a time when you didn't know.
Right.
The messenger always reminded us. He said the very ones who sitting up there all high and mighty will be the same one in the street tomorrow. He said believer today, hypocrite tomorrow.
Yes.
He said you can turn hypocrite overnight.
He
didn't teach us that, oh, once you taught, it's just some smooth sail. No. Messenger said if you don't continue to be active in the teachings of the messenger, he said, soon you will become like one who never knew the truth. That's what he said in that, on the Muhammad Speaks website when he was talking to the ministers. He said, if you slumber, if you sleep, if you get slack on the job, he said, you will become like one who never even knew the truth. Praise due to Allah. And being in Islam for some time, I see the truth of what the messenger said. You see people who used to be Muslim, clean cut and sharp. Now they just looking just as savage as they want to be.
That's right.
Like they never even knew the truth. That's one thing about the Muhammad Speaks newspapers. Because the teachings of the messenger is good and it makes you happy. But it scares you too. It scares the death or the hell out of you. Because I know when I first was reading the Muhammad Speaks newspapers, you kind of build a liking to certain people. You start thinking, oh, I like brother such and such X. Like his articles. Like the way he looks sharp. Like the way he always representing the messenger. Then 1975 come. You start seeing all them Bilalian news. You see the same brother that you looked up to in your own way, talking about the messenger like he ain't nothing. I'm telling you, that kind of scared me a lot. Because I think that I'm a pretty fiery kind of brother. I feel like I love the messenger. But that put a reality check on me. To see that. To know that you have to constantly be on God. Praise due to Allah. You can't be a person that think now you got it made. No. You have to constantly be on God. That's right. You have to constantly keep on sharpening yourself. Constantly keep reading. Constantly keep studying. The same thing you done study over and over again. Yes. You have to keep constantly going over. Because it can happen to any of us. Any of us can be bit. That's why the messenger said, strive hard against hypocrites and disbelief. That's right. Because as soon as you don't, messengers say they get next to you. Yes. He said they win your confidence. All they doing that just so they can double cross you. They get next to you. They know they don't believe. But they know what a believer would do. They know what a believer would say. And they know how a believer will act. So that hypocrite gets next to a believer. One who he thinks is strong. So we sit around and drop little seeds on the believer. To see what you gonna do. Because the messenger said what hypocrites do. Once you call them out, they act like it's a misunderstanding. Like, oh, I just got a misunderstanding. No, you ain't got no misunderstanding. Messenger was plain. Yes. Messenger didn't make no mistakes. The messenger was plain as day. So the hypocrite, trying to get next to the believer, they start dropping seeds. Then the first time they see you, not say what a Muslim should say, not act how a Muslim should act, then they say, I got him. Mm-hmm. That's where he weak at. Mm-hmm. So let me keep on feeding that weakness until the next day you become dissatisfied. Then you start doubting the message. Mm-hmm. Then you start looking at the truth like, well, maybe it's something different. Because a lot of people I done met in my time as a Muslim, they say I outgrown the teachings of the message. How you outgrow the message? What nation you done built? What nation you helped to build? Because the thing about the messenger that makes him so phenomenal is that he taught the same exact thing for 44 years. Because when I look at the messenger, especially when it get hard, and you see how he never gave up, he never quit. Because when you look at his history, it was always something seemed like going wrong. Either he running from hypocrites, he in jail for 5 years, his son go to jail, then his son come out a hypocrite. Just go look at how many hypocrites the messenger had that was in the Nation of Islam that worked against him. You had that woman, Dakota Stent. Then you had that secretary that, I forget his name. It was some secretary in the 50s that got all the way up to I believe he was like what Secretary John Ali was. Then he turned hypocrite and started working against. You had Malcolm. You had the messenger's sons. You had all these ministers in the Nation of Islam don't want to do what the messenger telling them to do. So when you look at the messenger's history, it seemed like it was always a problem. Then when it seemed like it might be going good, the messenger gets sick. So it was always something. But the thing about the messenger, he always stayed the same. And that's why you can tell him from all these other leaders. He never changed. When you look at his history in the 30s, he never changed. The only thing that, I won't say changed, but the only thing that added to it was when the messenger started thriving with business. The messenger's teachings didn't change. But you started to see more advertisements in the Muhammad Speaks talking about more business kind of stuff. But the teachings stayed the same. Praise due to Allah. The messenger always told us that he is the last and greatest messenger of Allah. He always told us that the white race is a race of devils. He told us that God came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. He came seeking to save that which is lost. But he said that Master Farad Muhammad demands strict obedience to his will. Yes. He don't demand for us to be playing around. He demands strict obedience to his will. So the messenger, going on with Samson, this was another part that got me. The messenger says the 7 locks of hair represents his own state and time that he was in for himself. He says the 7 represents infinity, the infinite power of the brain of the black man. Another sign is simple. The messenger told us that the black man has 7.5 ounces of brain.
That's right.
He said that the white man has 6 ounces of brain. But he said the black man has 7.5 ounces of original brain.
That's right.
The white man has 6 ounces of grafted brain. Messenger told us that the white race has 6,000 years to rule. But he said on the 7,000th year, he said that is the year of the black man. So this 7 locks of hair, the messenger says that it represents his own state and time that he was in for himself. So we talking about Samson. Samson should have been happy that he was a black man. He should have been rejoicing and thinking himself. But he was deaf, dumb, and blind. He was angry. He had a little bit of knowledge of self, just like many of us. Because the messenger talked about the average black man. He said the average black man don't accept his teachings as they should. He said they get a little bit of it and just take it and run with it.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. They don't accept it as they should. And he says when you do that, you divide up the black man.
Yes.
When you do that. Because the messenger already taught us the secret of the signs and the symbols of the Bible. So when you have fakes like Bus Stop Bishop, when you have hypocrites like Louis Eugene, when you have snakes like Shahrazad, all they doing is dividing up the black man.
Right.
Some people go with Bus Stop. Some people go with that hypocrite Louis Eugene. Some people like Shahrazad. But the messenger says that makes the black man weak. He said the white man helps you to divide up the black man. He said that he always excels or exalts the black men who are enemies to the message. He talked about Malcolm X. He talked about how the white man keeps Malcolm X in front of the black man just to divide us up. He said, I taught Malcolm all that he knew. Malcolm didn't know nothing before the messenger. It was the messenger who sent Malcolm X overseas. It was the messenger who taught Malcolm X that little was a slave name. It was the messenger that taught Malcolm how to eat. It was the messenger that taught Malcolm X how to be a husband, how to be a father, how to be a man. But this hypocrite, he think he know better than the messenger. He didn't accept the truth as he should.
Right.
He should have submitted to the message. He should have listened to what he said. Because I get sick of people talking about that Ronald T. Stokes stuff. Acting like the messenger and the Muslims lost with Ronald T. Stokes. But I remember when I was in the Navy, they taught us about the USS Thresher. This is another thing that blew me away once I started reading the teachings of the messenger. When I was in the Navy, they taught us that the USS Thresher was a world-class submarine. They said that at that time in 1962, the USS Thresher was world-class. It was top of the line. They said that the USS Thresher was going out on sea trials. That means when you get a new car, you take it for a test drive. So this was the USS Thresher in 1962 going out for a test drive. So they said all of the engineers, all of the civilians wanted to ride the USS Thresher. So they said that the USS Thresher was filled to capacity. You had civilians on the boat. You had engineers. You had all kind of people plus military people on the boat. So they said they don't know exactly what happened to the USS Thresher. But they say they have theories. One of the theories that they said that I remember, they said they think that a water pipe burst over the electrical circuits and caused it to just go down into the sea. Then I was researching the teachings of the messenger. He was being interviewed. And they asked the messenger about Ronald T. Stokes. He said that you at that submarine that just sunk, the Thresher. He named 2 or 3 Navy or planes that crashed. He said that was in retaliation for the death of Ronald T. Stokes. He said, Allah promised me that for the least of my followers that the white man killed, he will kill 10 of his best ones.
That's right.
That's what the messenger said.
Yes, he did.
So when the messenger taught this hypocrite, he said, we ain't going to L.A. to fight the police. He said, they'll slaughter my followers. Because the messenger was the last or the only man chosen by God.
Yes.
He wasn't like Samson. He didn't react because he was angry and take the pillars and kill his people too. He said, sometimes Allah whispers in my ear when he pleases. Messenger even says sometimes he can go outside and just look around. And Master Farad Muhammad taught him so much that he could just look at stuff and see Master Farad Muhammad's talking to him. That's what he said.
Yes, sir.
He said he taught him everything. He guides me as he pleases. That's what the messenger said.
Yes, sir.
The messenger said, if you and me, 100%. He said, our lives with you 1,000%. Praise due to Allah. But he said, but if you deviate from me, he deviates from you.
That's right.
The messenger even went on to say, in my conclusion, this is what the messenger says in the Fall of America. This is in chapter 49. It says, love before the storm. The messenger says, Allah God is offering the black once slave heaven at once. This he has proven to everyone that believes in Allah and follows me. I am the door. By no means can you get by except you come by me. Your prayers will not be heard unless my name is mentioned in them. I am saying that you cannot get a prayer through to Allah unless you mention me in your prayer. Try to see. I am satisfied that those who know this will bear me witness. That was the message.
Yes, sir.
He said your prayers won't even be heard by Allah if you don't say his name. Now you got a lot of people who Christians. You got a lot of bus stop Bible Baptists who believe in this faith. They'll say, I pray to God. God, show us some proof that God heard or answered your prayer. We're not talking about you just praying into space. We're talking about God hearing you and answering your prayer. I'm talking about real time. When the messenger talked about the USS Thresher, that's real time. It just sunk. Them planes just crashed. He told the white man that's a retaliation for the murder of Ronald T. Stokes. He said, Allah promised me that for the least one you kill, he'll kill 10 of your best ones. You don't say that unless God hears and answers your prayer.
Yes, sir.
The messenger wrote, just one last thing. The messenger talked about fighting the police. I forget what Muhammad Speaks newspaper it was, but I believe it was in 1967. This is another article that blew me away. You don't be expecting the messengers to say some of the stuff that he said, especially in the public, like how he was saying. So the messenger got word that a brother had got shot down by the police. This was somewhere in Texas. The messenger heard about it in a few days. He wrote his article. You can feel the tone in the article that the messenger was not pleased at all. So the messenger telling the FOI, he said this brother should not have turned on his heels.
Yes.
He said Allah blessed this brother to take the weapons from the devil. He said, but he was what do you call him? He said he was a deaf, dumb, and blind Negro or something he said like he lost the knowledge of himself. He was saying he was more afraid of the devil than he feared Allah. So he said he gave the weapon back to the devil. The messenger said that he should not have done. So the messenger said, for the next time, he said, don't turn on your heels. He said, if Allah blessed you to fight this devil and he blessed you to take his weapon, he said, go all the way. That was the message. He said, call on Allah.
That's right.
That was the only defense the messenger gave. He said, call on Allah. He said, don't run. He said, even if he kill you, he said, you still die. You won't die a coward. That was the messenger said. So I read that article in 1967. Then around 1970, 1971, 1972, 1973 and 4, I started reading all these articles of brothers fighting police. Once again, I ain't expecting to read this kind of stuff. Brothers read, and when you read them brothers talking about fighting the police, they talk about fighting the police like we talk about winning the battle. Like, hey, we just slapping hands. These brothers in 1974, they fought the Atlanta Police Department. Them brothers was writing an article telling the believers about what happened. They talked about the brother who got killed. They say this brother didn't die in vain. They say this brother died a soldier. They said if these devils come back tomorrow, we'll do it all over again. That's what they said. They said we called on Allah, just like the messenger taught us to do. In 1972, when them devils fought, or the brothers fought the NYPD, brothers wrote the article and say we called on Allah. Allah blessed us to disarm them devils. I was reading a book that was written by the white man. This devil said that when them devils heard them brothers slam them steel double doors, he said that's when the white man knew he was trapped. He said that the thing that got him and hurt him the most, he said those devils was Vietnam vets. Go listen to that. I forget what I wish. I'm going to put it on the video. The devil's name who wrote about them brothers who fought in New York. He still, it's 2023, he still be talking about it. He still has a Facebook page talking about when them brothers went in there and fought them police. He said when he went to the hospital to see the devils in the hospital, he said them devils was still in terror. He said one of them police looked at him and said, they just took our guns and started beating on us. That's what this devil said, the first thing they said. Then he said, this was the Old Testament Nation of Islam. He said when they went back to the temple to do the investigation, he said Louis Farrakhan came down there with a whole lot of FOI. He said Farrakhan told the lead detective, he said, you ain't safe in here. Told him straight up, you ain't safe in here. That's what he said. He told some other stuff that I forgot. But he came down there and told this devil, y'all ain't safe in here. It ain't over with. You are in it. Then when Farrakhan got on the interview, because this is on YouTube, he told the white man, he said, this is a new black man. He said usually the black man would be apologizing for the death of the white man. But he said this is a new black man. He said they came in here as beasts and they was met with like beasts. He said, and we took their weapons and we fought back to defend ourselves. So when the messenger said, call on Allah, he will answer your prayer. The messenger has much history bearing witness to what he said. Because I done read plenty of articles. And sometimes when you read these articles, in my conclusion, the brothers don't always live. I don't want it to seem like every time them brothers fought the police, brothers lived. But when you read the story though, I read another story in my closing. It was this brother. It was two brothers in Florida. This brother was 22 years old and the other brother was 24. They said that they had been harassed by the police. So they said that the brother that was standing on the corner, the police started harassing him. They said he hollered, Allahu Akbar. And the one brother came across the street to help this brother fight. They said them brothers was fighting them devils all up and down whatever street that was in Florida. The devil calling for backup. They had security guards in department stores help. Them two brothers fighting them devils calling on the one brother died though. But when you read the story, it's like they had to call backup for two brothers. Right. They had all kind of devils in department stores helping them devils, and they still lost because the brother disarmed the devil. Many times you will read that them brothers disarmed the devil and the other devil will shoot. But them brothers called on Allah. Yes, and Allah heard and answered their prayer. Well, brothers and sisters, we don't want to prolong the time. So I leave you as I came in the nation of Islam's greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Enjoying the show? Help keep us on the air. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033 to make a donation.
Brothers and sisters, we rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent and merciful, sole master's day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, and thee alone beseech for thine help and aid. O Allah, please guide us on the right path of those upon whom thou bestow thy favors, not on the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray after they heard thy teachings. Say he, Allah is one God. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begetteth not, nor is he begotten, there is none like him. And I bear witness that none is to be served, worship, or praise besides Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was thy true servant and last apostle. Ameen. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us not to do anything to anyone that we wouldn't have done to ourselves, and treat everybody right, even the devil. Assalamu alaikum.